This is Conversations with Women in Sales, an award-winning podcast created by Barbara Giamanco, who hosted the first 67 episodes. Listen to interviews with amazing women about their journeys in their sales careers, often discussing sales leadership tips, ideas, and strategies. We aim to inspire women to consider a sales career and for some women to grow into sales leadership. Men, we appreciate your allyship. And now, your host, Lori Richardson.
Big shout out to our official sponsor, Reprise, the leading full funnel, product-led growth platform. With Reprise, your sales team creates, presents, and shares product demos, perfectly customized for each step of your sales motion. Go to getreprise.com/womenInSales to try for free today. I'm here with Heidi Messer. Heidi is chairperson and co-founder of Collective Eye, and she's an investor, board member, and much more. I've been wanting to talk with Heidi for a long time. So Heidi, it's so great to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you, Lori. It's so nice to see you. I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, I've heard about you and I've followed you, and we finally get a chance to talk. I think first it would be good for me to give a little bit of background. You were president and COO of a company in the late 90s to early 2000s, and it was one of the fastest growing tech companies, ultimately sold to Rakuten for $425 million, which is pretty exciting. I'm curious to hear more about that, and then we'll talk about Collective Eye, okay? Tell us.
Yeah, I'm happy to tell you about that journey and sort of all the businesses I've done and invested in since, because there's a common thread that I think exists there. And
Right.
and I think probably people listening would be interested in, what was similar, a constant between, the mid 90s and today, and
Yeah.
how the world's changed and evolved. And I would say the thing that I've learned from all the businesses that I've done is that everyone thinks that transformation and disruption will take longer than it actually does. I think that makes it very interesting, by the way, from the perspective of being in sales, both in that now I sell to sales leaders,
Yeah.
but also when you're a sales leader yourself and you're sort of picking which company to work for or, what technologies to buy. The one thing I would say as advice is that people think that being an early adopter is easy. And in many cases, they think that being an early adopter is more risky than waiting, or even worse, not worth the effort. And one thing I would say is the times that I've seen, whole businesses disappear or people become obsolete, it's when they fail to question their own logic.
Yeah.
So when they assume, I would say, and it's a sad irony, but people become a victim of their past success.
Yeah.
So, the greatest sales leaders that I've seen and the greatest business people that I've seen are marked by resilience and the ability to say, what got me here won't get me there.
Right.
And if I see a really smart person, passionate about something and advocating for something that I don't understand, the important thing for me is to take the reins and actually try to understand it. So I don't know if that gets to the heart of your question of, what it was like to start an internet business in the 90s, what it's like to start an AI business in the 2020s.
Similar risk factors, right? And people not understanding what you're doing yet.
Yeah. And I think, even when I look to things to invest in or boards to serve on, the places where I think that I can add value is getting people to question logic that maybe isn't fitting a current paradigm, right? So they have some old logic that they're trying to jam into the future, and it's actually making them very vulnerable.
Interesting. And so how did you make the move to AI?
So I think that one of the things you'll see, and we have this event that, if you haven't come, you should. It's called Collective Eye Forecast. The URL is ciforecast.com. And what we do in that event is we actually talk about all forms of innovation. It may be AI some weeks, In other weeks, it may be, this week we're talking about the development of a new chip that acts like an artificial brain.
Yeah, I'm gonna attend that.
I hope you do. And I think the thing that makes the commonality or the common thread, whether it was, saying that, hey, most of the world is going to exist online in 1995, or in 2022 saying, sales has to have an intelligent brain augmenting the judgment that sellers use on their own. The commonality is that all of these themes are moving towards a world where people operate within communities, where they operate and they're connected, where they operate and it has to be fast. And technologies like AI are technologies that help that adaptation. They're not actually the change themselves, but they're the change that enables the change. So for me, AI was sort of a natural extension of all the things that I had seen leading up to it, and all the things that I anticipate will come from, the dawn of the internet now to a digital age, now to, people talking about the metaverse, and a world where we use cryptocurrency to pay for things and quantum computing to analyze data. It's a natural part of that whole ecosystem to have AI enabled applications.
Yeah, and I've always been a proponent of change, and I'm not sure why that was instilled in me, but I love that there are new things on the horizon, and I love that something around the corner that involves AI or something else could improve the the selling experience or the buying experience more likely. And so I think that that's great that you're doing that. Collective AI is, I'm sorry, Collective I is an interesting company. And I wondered if you would tell us a little. What I know about it is that you're on a mission to fuel global prosperity by modernizing how sales operates. And the platform that you have enables sales transformation using award winning patented technology and a massive network to improve everything from CRM data quality to forecast accuracy. I think one of the things that really stood out for me is that it's community oriented, right? It's collaborative, and it's based on network, right?
That's absolutely correct. I wasn't sure. I was waiting for you to finish. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Because that's a key component, it seems like.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And we've been talking about a new paradigm for the future, and I'll just, throw out some things that I think salespeople are experiencing that represent the symptoms of the problem that Collective I is solving. And I'll just say one last thing, which is you mentioned a network. Our name is short for collective intelligence. So keep that in the back of your head as I describe how we do things and why we do things. So some of the symptoms I would say that, people are seeing, and COVID really accelerated a lot of them. You're seeing a drop in inbound, for example, where it's really, really hard to get someone to respond to emails that they used to respond to. If you have an SDR team and they were, on the phones all day, well, where do they call today? Nobody's sitting in an office anymore. So unless you can get people's cell phone numbers, and, for anyone who's tried to cold call someone on their cell phone, you can imagine how pleasant an experience it is on the other side of that. So I think, there's the change in terms of how buyers, even physically, where buyers are living today.
Yeah.
The second change is there's more of them. Anyone who's involved in complex sales knows that, I spoke to a company recently, said we used to be able to do one demo. Now for every prospect, we have to do three.
Wow.
That's not an insignificant change. The reason they do three is, Tom says, I want Jane to see it. Jane says, I want, Susan to see it. Susan says, I want Jack to see it.
Yeah.
And getting everybody, because they're not in an office together, getting everyone to be on the same page. So more complex buying motions extends the sales cycle. There's more work for individual sellers to do. And the last piece is, on the selling side, in order to tailor a sale to individual buyers, which, by the way, they all expect personalization now. Nobody who uses the internet, can go on Amazon and get a more personalized experience than you get with a human being often in B2B sales. All of those things require deep collaboration. and deep collaboration that's supported by intelligence. So if I have 3x the number of opportunities in my pipeline, 3 times the number of buyers on the buying side that I had before, more of my own prospecting that I have to do as a seller, and yet I still have to sit in an all-day forecast meeting. I still have to sit in an all-day pipeline review meeting. I still have to enter data into CRM. It's just not a sustainable system anymore. And so what Collective I really did was we looked and said, well, first of all, how can we take away any task using robotic process automation, a form of AI, that is not worth a seller's time? And I will tell you the 2 biggest ones, Forecast Fridays and inputting data into CRM.
Right.
Total waste of time. Nobody trusts the data. It takes away from speaking to customers. It doesn't refine your focus. It doesn't make you accountable. Promising to commit to a deal isn't going to make you be able to change a buyer's mind if they've, changed roles or changed jobs. So we replaced all those things with more modern forms of working. I mentioned deep collaboration. For anyone who saw the Figma transaction, Adobe bought Figma for $20 billion. Why is that?
Wow.
Right? Because people don't design in isolation anymore, right? They need a tool. It's not the design tools that are unique. It's the ability to collaborate around those design tools. Collective I is structured exactly the same way. It's intelligence, but the idea behind the intelligence is to get everyone in the organization to be collaborating around the buyer, helping the buyer's experience be more personalized. So to answer your question more directly, some of the things we do are we automate data capture. We enrich contacts using a vast network of contact data. We provide intelligence like fully automated forecasting on demand, one click, you have it every day. And we provide transparency and collaboration tools that help people connect with the people they need to make sales happen faster.
That's great. Do you think the SDR BDR role will change or be lessened?
I don't know that it'll be lessened. I think it's essential to have that interim step between marketing and hardcore sales. I think it'll change. I think the world of 8 touch points for every buyer yields you an appointment, like this formulaic world.
Yeah.
I think you need to have a team of sellers, right? I believe in team selling to meet consensus sales. And I think that SDRs and BDRs are good, really strong medium. I also think they're the farm team for sellers. So the best way to become an enterprise seller or field sales representative is to actually start off as an SDR. So where do I think we underinvest in them? I think we don't do enough training. I don't think we give them enough tools or time to do research and prospect in a thoughtful way. And the repetitive motion of just sending out communications and bombarding people, I think that part of the job has to go away.
Yeah. And the expectation of certain numbers to hit when in fact quality is way more important, right? That's
way more important.
Experience. Yeah.
If you're going to put a human being on the job, what I'll say to our team is if the website could do it, if a mass email could do it, a human being shouldn't.
Right.
Like you are there to be the value add. You are the person behind personalization. So everything that you've just said, I 100% agree with.
Yeah. And it just seems like in onboarding SDRs and first line reps, we don't teach them about who our buyer is and what's important to them and who are their customers. And, actually hear one of them talk in video that we could have recorded about, what's important. And it just seems like we're kind of throwing people in like, good luck, like we did years ago. That's how I learned in the 80s.
Oh, I was so excited to see that you teach at Harvard Business School. And we talked a little bit about this privately, because one of the things that I think is chronically underinvested in sales organizations is career pathing, training, and coaching. And I'll give you an example. So to produce a forecast, so most organizations produce a forecast once a week. Right? And the organization comes to a complete standstill for 1 day a week. Forecast Fridays, right? Everyone's sitting in their spreadsheets. Operations is reviewing it. Maybe they use some application that claims to use historical patterns and make the job somewhat easier. What do you think the cost is to a normal sales organization of removing an entire sales team for 1 day a week?
Oh, huge.
Now, how much do you think we invest in training on average each individual seller per year?
Very little.
$1,300.
Wow.
So we invest millions of dollars in a process that does nothing to improve the experience for the buyer. In fact, it's the counter to that because you're unavailable to the buyer for one day to predict a future that is unknowable, right? We can anticipate the future, but we can't predict it. Instead, and at the sacrifice of actually training people to be better at their jobs. Like that's the logic that I think has to change.
I'm with you. I agree. That just does not make sense. And we've seen, the plethora of tech tool. I mean, come on. Is it helping reps hit quota? So it's the actual application and the teaching of how something can help, how a tool can be a part of a process is the way I look at it.
Well, and or remove the process entirely. I mean, Elon Musk has a great saying, the best process is no process. So if you can use AI to eliminate a process, remember they used to call it rigor, putting data into CRM. If it doesn't exist in CRM, you won't get paid. Remember that logic?
Yeah, I do.
So, with technologies like Collective Eye, we just say automate it as sellers work, just put their data in the CRM for them. It's technologically possible. Why would you ask them to be data entry clerks? They're so much more talented than that.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean about abandoning, the old logic. Like calling it rigor doesn't mean it's rigorous. Like it doesn't mean it's actually helping the outcome that you're trying to get to.
Yeah. Yeah. And just switching gears a little bit, I imagine you've been one of the only women in the room in a lot of different situations that you've been in your business career. And I just wonder, we know that sales is underrepresented at every level for women, lack of women. What do you think could get more women into our profession of selling?
Well, we have to change this trend, Lori, because, the reality is the people who have the ability to control revenue, hold the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
And if you ask me where the highest paying jobs are going to be in the future, it's going to be people with high EQ who are able to do the work that computers can't do. Computers can't build relationships. Computers can't describe in a compelling way. They're not great storytellers, right? They don't persuade. They don't do all the things that great sales professionals do, nor are they great coaches, which is what great managers do. And women have, and I hate to use this stereotypically because it sounds stereotypical, but when you look at, when people study the way women work in the workforce and the way men do, women are much more collaborative. They're much more comfortable working in a team. They don't have to be the hero of every interaction. And those are all the skills that we're moving towards. The so-called soft skills are now becoming the hard skills because AI can do the the hard skills. So we have to change this. And, I think in terms of getting more women involved, I think it's so important that there's women leadership. There's so important that, you can see it to believe it. So again, my hat's off to you and you're part of all these amazing groups that are setting the example for everyone. But I also think we have to say, there's going to have to be trailblazers, people who fight through some of the old thinking to get there and then hold the door open for everybody else.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is talking about this as like a very lucrative profession. I mean, I think sales, I one time had an intern and I said, find me positive portrayals of salespeople in the media. And literally this person couldn't. He came back with Tommy Boy, Glengarry, Glenn Ross. I mean, it was like a story of happiness.
Yeah.
And so I think there's this feeling of like, even when you say the word sales, it's one of the reasons at Collective Eye, we're always celebrating people in the sales profession. Even the words we use, we won't call people sales reps because it sounds like you can just pick up a bag and start walking. Like sales professionals are, it needs to be taught at preeminent schools like Harvard,
Yeah.
and just encouraging people to say, this is a really lucrative profession. If you're a person that has very high EQ, that you're organized, you like coaching people, you like to see people developed over time, this is an incredible, incredible career that is going to survive the AI revolution, where there are others that probably won't.
Exactly. Yeah. There will always be a need for someone with a high EQ, as you say, and someone who can articulate some messaging that, AI has a long way to go before it can replace a human. I mean, it's not going to happen from what I can see.
Yeah, and empathy is a uniquely human skill. And so
Yeah.
if you're, a highly empathetic person, I think there's a misconception that great sellers are just extroverts in the life of the party. Like,
Not true.
not true. Some of the best sales professionals I've seen, and certainly the best sales managers, are people who listen. Um,
Yeah.
they're listen. They're empathetic. They want to make people's lives better.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
ultimately, that's what you're doing in sales. You're helping people solve their problems.
Yeah. I was a former teacher, and I also worked as a server in a restaurant. And, some of those skills I still teach. I teach now, even when I'm working with sales professionals and sales leaders. And I think when you think of it as a helping profession, and when the companies can understand that women do have some additional needs in a job, in that, when you mentioned career pathing, for example, traditionally, the research that I've seen and a little bit that we've done shows that women want a little more sense of what their career path could look like if they came to your firm, and want to know what you stand for as an organization, maybe more than men do. And then it's pay and everything else. But those are things that I think companies need to understand, leaders need to understand, that women might look at things a little differently and be a little less risk averse, be a little more risk averse, and in making their decisions.
Well, the nice part about sales is it's easy to keep score.
Right.
That this isn't based on your manager's opinion of you. Or, if you deliver revenue, you delivered it. That's
Right.
it's just like sports. If you ran and scored the touchdown, nobody else can take credit for it. So,
Yeah.
good place to showcase real talent.
Yeah. I was a single mom. And so I knew that if my numbers were good, I could leave early. I could, go to the PTA meeting or take my son that he played sports. And I did that because I knew that my numbers spoke for me. And I loved that about sales. It was it wasn't some guy's opinion in a corner office. Like, well, we don't think you're really cutting it. It's like, oh yeah, look at my numbers.
Well, and how many buyers could relate to your situation, right? I think that had to be, you had, and I don't know this for certain. You could tell me, but you had a certain empathy for working through challenges that I would imagine, people who weren't a single parent wouldn't have. Knowing how to juggle all that, and when you get on the phone with somebody who has that experience, who's a buyer, and you can speak to them with true feeling for what they're going through, it's so powerful.
Yeah. And I think I made really good use of my time because I didn't have time. I didn't get to stand around and work on my golf stroke, in the office or anything. I was in and out, and dealing with buyers, and then I was gone. So yeah, it was quite different. And I started on straight commission, which is kind of interesting
That's
because
gutsy.
I was very, very scared. But then I was able to buy my first house when I was 27. So that was pretty cool as a single mom.
Well, and how good does it feel winning?
It's great. I mean, that's the joy of professional selling. I mean, that's why I can't recommend it enough to women and anyone really who really wants to change the game for themselves.
I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah. So what's ahead for you? I mean, what are you excited about?
Oh my gosh. How long do you have? I think we're so blessed to live in this time. It's frightening, right? It's frightening to look at, the war in Ukraine and inflation and, talks of a recession. But at the same time, and I think this is true for both entrepreneurs and salespeople, I'm a glasses half full person. So I think the amount of innovation that we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years is just going to be staggering. I'm excited to see it in my business because I know the things that we have cooking in the background, and um, they're just incredible and will make so many people's lives better. I don't know if you knew this, but 1 in 8 people in this country are in sales, and and you mentioned being risk averse, and the sad truth of it all is that 25% of them lose their jobs every year for not making quota. That is, to my mind, unacceptable. So, one of the things I'm excited about is our mission that as we can bring transparency to revenue and predictability to revenue, that people won't be the lever that are used to manage when there's fear. So, the go to place won't be, let's just fire, and prepare for a long winter because our VCs told us to. We'll actually be able to have AI driven insights that say, here's how we navigate choppy waters. Like, to me, that's thrilling.
That's exciting.
To me, it's thrilling that, I think one of the professions that we're going to see, we've heard of creators, we've heard of influencers. I actually believe the next profession, and we're doing a lot of things to enable this, is connectors. People who leverage their network and say, I know how to make things happen. And, that will become a paid profession. Like, that's, in the way that sales is a paid profession, but think of all the things that you do on the side to, privately help people by connecting them, simply saying you two should know each other.
Yeah.
That's truly powerful. And think about if you could do that on steroids, right? If you had a platform that allowed you to do that. So I'm not going to, I'm teasing it out a little. I'm not going to tell you that much more because that's coming from us.
I can't wait.
We're super excited about it.
Yeah. As a true connector, I mean, that's what I think I do more than anything. And I do believe that one could make a healthy living just connecting people if it was done right. So I don't know.
Well, I'm going to be reaching out to you privately.
Okay.
That's Collectify is all about connectors. That's like very core to the technology that we've built. It's connecting people to intelligence, but also connecting people to each other. Because I think there's machine generated intelligence and then there's human intelligence. And if you can combine the two, that's where you see really big changes happening.
Oh, that's so exciting. Heidi, it's been such a pleasure to speak with you a little bit. I'm looking forward to following up again down the road. And what's the best way for people to learn about Collectivi and about you?
So I would go to collectivi.com to learn. I also would say I'm very open to being connected to. So either you can connect to me through Collectivi, which by the way is free for all sales professionals. We only charge at the manager level. But the other piece of it is, LinkedIn, Twitter, any of the sort of major platforms. I'm very happy to connect to people. Any woman who's interested in going into sales, I will be a champion, a sounding board, introduce you to companies. Like, I think we all have to be on a mission, Lori. Like, this profession is going to just go off like a rocket ship. It's already, you can see the changes that are happening in it, but it's already getting more and more competitive. We have to make sure we have our own farm team there.
Yeah. And you're hiring too.
We're hiring. We love hiring extraordinary sales professionals. If they're women, that's even more awesome. So, yep, come my way. Give me your best pitch.
Thank you so much, Heidi. It's really been a pleasure, and I'm just looking forward to what's ahead.
Oh, thank you. It was really nice to talk to you, Lori.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conversations with Women in Sales. You can find all of our episodes at womensalespros.com/podcast. Help us spread the word, and let's change the face of B2B sales.